Governors of the 17 states in the southern part of Nigeria yesterday rose from a crucial meeting in Asaba, Delta State capital, with a resolution to ban open grazing of cattle by nomadic herdsmen anywhere in the region. The governors also called on President Muhammadu Buhari to urgently convoke a national dialogue. Arise correspondent Jemima Boloko reports.
The rising insecurity across Nigeria and calls by groups, especially in the south, for a division of the country has got the 17 southern governors meeting in Asaba, the Delta State capital. The governors, after deliberating on topical issues facing the country, resolved that Nigeria remains indivisible while restating their ban on open grazing by herdsmen to reduce insecurity.
Consequently, the meeting resolved that open grazing of cattle be banned across southern Nigeria. 3. The meeting noted that development and population growth has put pressure on available land and increased the prospect of conflict between migrant herders and local population in the south. Given this scenario, it becomes imperative to enforce the ban on open grazing in the south, including cattle movement to south by foot. The meeting recommended that the federal government should support willing states to develop alternative and modern livestock management system.
The Southwest, the South-South and the Southeast governors also resolved that the country's progress requires that urgent and bold steps be taken to immediately restructure the Nigerian Federation to allow for the state police and a review of the revenue allocation formula in favor of states, among the evolution of other powers.
That the progress of the nation requires that urgent and bold steps be taken to restructure the Nigerian Federation, leading to the evolution of state police, review of revenue formula in favor of subnationals, and creation of other institutions which legitimately advance our commitment to and practice of true federalism. The meeting recommended that in view of the widespread agitation among our various peoples for greater inclusiveness in existing governance arrangement, the federal government should convoke a national dialogue as a matter of urgency.
The Southern Governors meeting also expressed concern over the economic implication of another COVID-19 lockdown on the country, while suggesting greater coordination and cooperation between states and the federal government to deal with the pandemic. Jemima Boloko, Arise News, Delta.
Right, welcome back from that. Thanks for that report, Jemima Boloko. To know your views on this.
Well, I was well attended, that meeting, which for me underscored the seriousness. There were two absentees, Governor Ayade and Governor Oyetola, goodness knows why, but then it was well attended, and it goes to show how urgent what has been discussed truly is. The call for national dialogue is important, but the claim by the southern governors there that the South is interested in Nigeria's unity, for me, is a sweeping generalization. They might be, but there are voices agitating for secession, and those voices have to be addressed. Ignoring them will not make them go away, which is why I completely agree with their call for a national dialogue. Everybody needs to come to the table. It's extremely important. Also, along the lines of communication is the call for the president to sort of address some of the issues that we see with nepotism and failing to make appointments at the federal government level along the lines of federal character, which is enshrined in our Constitution. This is a huge bone of contention in this country. When people don't feel a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership, like Section 15, subsection 4 says all Nigerians ought to feel. The ban on open grazing is important, and the idea that there should be alternatives that the federal government could support with, the call for restructuring yet again, And also that part about reviewing revenue allocation made me smile, not with any kind of amusement or mirth. I just thought, why don't you governors get to the business of actually generating, revenue for your state instead of always demanding more like Oliver Twist, That part I found amusing, but, that's what you would expect from the governors. And also talking about security, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a 12-point communique that was read by the chairman of the Southern Governors, and that we saw there, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State. And I think that they did try and touch on all the major issues affecting Nigeria today.
All right, Dr. Batu?
Yes, well, I think it's a good development. We cannot object at any point or at any level to dialogue. Dialogue is important. It's better to judge than to war. Before now, we have had the Northern Governors Forum meeting, and now we have this report about the Southern Governors Forum meeting yesterday to address key issues. I do not see anybody disagreeing with some of the issues that they have raised, because these are general issues of national concern. Issues about open grazing, issues about the president addressing Nigerians. I hope the president will take special notice of that, because there are many people who complain that the president relates too often, too frequently, too much with the Nigerian public through proxies. I even saw a piece by someone saying that, look, Garuba Shehu is not the man that Nigerians voted for. They voted for the president, and they would like to hear from him directly on key issues. Maybe they should start by organizing or reviving the presidential media charts, which used to be a major feature in the presidency and a vehicle, a platform for the president to engage with the majority of Nigerians. They're calling for national dialogue. Yes, many Nigerians want national dialogue. They want a conversation around the key issues that affect all of us. The 2014 National Conference took place, well, because of the closeness to election. At the time that report was released, none of the recommendations could be implemented. And then the Buhari government came in, and the Buhari government said, well, they have very serious objections to the mode of representation at that national conference. So if we're not going to go back to that 2014 report that is there, which in itself was informed by previous efforts at the national conference, can the Buhari administration organize another conference, another national dialogue? It will keep the people busy. Perhaps it will, take attention away from some of the divisive, febrile issues that we're dealing with at this moment. But more importantly, I think we should stress the reaction of the Arewa Consultative Forum. The Arewa Consultative Forum, in responding to some of the recommendations coming out of the Southern Governors Forum, said, one, they are not against open grazing. And the position of the Arewa Consultative Forum is that even the Mieti Allah and the MACMAN, that's the Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, agreed that open grazing should come to an end and that there should be ranching. Okay, can government look at that now that there seems to be a meeting of minds between the North and South on that particular issue? However, the Arewa Consultative Forum is also insisting that restructuring, which is one of the major outcomes from that forum, that meeting in Asaba, yesterday. They're saying that to talk about restructuring, there must be a national consensus on what should constitute restructuring. And the departure point for them is whether Nigeria should remain one or people should go to their own tents. Well, I don't know. But if there's going to be a conversation around that, it can be part of the proposed national conference. So the buck has been pushed back into the corner of the presidency of the government of Nigeria. And I hope that the presidency will listen to some of those recommendations that are made, will pay attention to some of the details, and that there will be a bigger conversation within the Nigerian community around these issues that will not be frustrated in any way.
Okay, we'll go on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's talk to our dependable Rotus Odiri. Rotus, how are you doing? Great to have you. Hi, Rotus. Hi, Rotus. Okay, trying to get across to Rotus, and once we get across to him, definitely we'll be able to get his views regards the business scene in Africa today. If Rotus is ready, Rotus, can you hear me now?
Yes, good morning.
Excellent. Hey, Rotus, how are you? Go ahead.
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu. And good morning, Doctor. Yeah, so there's some limits that have been placed on cash deposits that can be put into domiciliary accounts in Nigeria. It's actually in today's this day, but we broke the news yesterday on the Global Business Report. Banks have been sending out notices to their customers telling them that no more than $5,000 can be deposited in cash every month. You can exceed $5,000 if you are transferring funds electronically. So I spoke to some senior officials at the central bank, also talked to some deposit money banks. Even Tundu did her own investigations as well and confirmed the same. So essentially, the central bank is trying to make sure that they can reduce the amount of pressure on the parallel market. The bank, doesn't want folks hoarding dollars in their domiciliary accounts. It's, Nigeria uses the naira, and so that is supposed to be what is the general use of currency in the country. There's also the fact that they want to be able to track USD and foreign currencies through official channels coming into these accounts. There's some exceptions, I believe, for oil and gas companies, and then funds that are being paid to government agencies. Now, I should stress, there's no official word from the central bank. There's no circular to this effect. It's just, it's just something that's unwritten at this point. But considering where the central bank is coming from with the low amount of supply of foreign exchange in the country, and them trying to track these avenues, I guess it makes sense. However, on the other side of this, you have to consider what the impact would be. If you limit the amount of funds that folks can deposit in cash into their accounts, where do they put that excess cash? Under their pillows at home, or where? That's a security risk. There's also, of course, the confidence that Nigerians have right now in the naira. We should be getting today is a public holiday. In fact, there was a treasury bill auction that's been postponed because of this public holiday. But I believe we'll be returning to work on Friday, which is also quite interesting. I don't know how to see how productivity works out on Friday after a 2-day holiday. But with respect to the auctions and so on and so forth, where Nigerians were supposed to get in inflation figures, I believe, on Friday or next week, which is supposed to see another uptick, right? We're at 18.17% right now, headline inflation, 23% for food. Now, you take that plus depreciation of the currency, you can understand why Nigerians would want to hold foreign currency to protect their purchasing power. When you think about purchasing power and the value and the likes. So, and then look, you had the managing director of the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority talking about, I think it was yesterday or the day before, talking about the amount of returns that they enjoyed. That's the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Fund. Overseas, right? The Nigerian Sovereign Investment Fund reaped good returns in 2020 based on investing in the United States, Japan, in Europe, and so on and so forth. So the average Nigerian that's looking at that report and saying what the NSC, how well it did, would say, well, what about me? I also want to hold foreign currencies and earn returns as well. But by and large, that's the limits that we are seeing with respect to cash deposits in DOM accounts. To Augusto & Co. is the subsidiary of Augusto & Company's rating agency. They have put out a forecast in a new report that diaspora remittances should rise by 5% to about 22 billion naira in 2021. A report that they just put out on diaspora remittances for, I guess it was the month of May. They see it rising by about another to 22.5 billion in 2022. It's mostly based on, I guess, economic recovery, also recovery in the diaspora. The central bank has extended its naira for dollar scheme to where you get 5 naira for every $1 that comes in through the international money transfer operators, again, who have been licensed by the CBN, and I want to make sure they can track this coming in. So diaspora remittances fell about 12% from 2019 to 2020. Of course, we know the pandemic and the job losses overseas and so on and so forth. So this is optimistic, seeing as, remittances are second only to oil in terms of FX inflows. And, I think Nigeria is second only to Egypt on the continent in terms of total remittances that come in. So the Augusta report is encouraging in that regard. To Kenya. Kenya is planning an emissions trading scheme. Essentially, a number of countries are putting a price on carbon emissions in order to reach their climate goals. Kenya has, I think it's a 2030 or 2050 carbon neutral goal for climate change, what they're trying to reach. So what they're doing is they are giving limited amounts of credits to companies in Kenya to allow them a limited amount of carbon emissions. You have to essentially pay for it, and the companies can trade them amongst themselves. So the whole logic is that the more they have to pay for these things, it hits their bottom line. It forces them to have to shift away from using coal and so on. But again, as I think Tundu has noted this, or Doctor, or even Rufai, one of you have noted this in the past, that Africa does not contribute as much to climate change as China and the United States and so on, yet we are disproportionately affected because of how much of our populations depend on agriculture and so on and so forth. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Kenya also planned a green bond last year or so. They haven't floated that bond yet, but it's part of their climate goals.
All right, we've not industrialized, and that's a point I'd like to take on. And that's why when you look at the case of parity as regards carbon seeding, net zero, and all of that challenge, you look at it and say, is Africa being fairly treated in all of this? I mean, we've not industrialized. We've not reached the levels of China. We've not even reached the levels of 17th century England. That used to be the industrial hub of the world up to 1900. We've not even reached that point yet. So when we look at it critically, we need manufacturing as a very important sector in our country. And from that, I'd like to quickly segue into talking about the bonds system, the new policy by the CBN that is not written yet, that people should keep less money in their domiciliary account. The truth has to be said. And like I said the other day, investment has no national flag put to it. Investment is country agnostic.
Correct.
And it has to be said, they need to get this, because we keep saying this every day. I'm not sure if they get it. There's a sense of national pride in investment, but also there's a sense of where can you make the most rewards. That's why it's investment. You talked about the National Sovereign Investment Company.
Yeah.
Going to invest in foreign markets.
Right.
And you don't want us to invest in foreign markets here. If we want to, the next thing, you block us, you tell the companies, the likes of Bamboo and Co. that are helping us buy investment abroad, they have to get license, you trap us, you block us, you kick us, you push us. No, don't do it. But you are going to invest abroad, because if the market was that viable, why can't the National Sovereign Investment start by being patriotic, by putting his money in the Nigerian stock market, or the Nigerian treasury bills, or the Nigerian bonds? Let's call a spade a spade. It's not that we don't love our country. We love our country. We want it to work. And that's why we keep talking. And how can it work? We can put the necessary regulations in place to be able to boost every sector. We can give people the chance to be creative.
Correct.
I think it was Henry Ford. He wrote a book in 1923 called Today and Tomorrow. In that book, Henry Ford said we must be pioneers of new sectors. Why is it that we try to kill pioneers of new sectors in this country? Nobody had paid minimum wage over $3 or $5 before Henry Ford started paying minimum wage of $5 per day.
Right.
We must be pioneers, and we must support the new sectors. We must support those doing new sector, digital currency and things like that, because that's the future.
It is.
Very quickly, what I see here is a contradiction in terms of policy approach. And this is one of the things we talk about all the time. And it's good. I was very happy when you said the CBN has not issued any formal statement on this policy that banks have slashed dollar cash deposit to $5,000, which was previously $10,000. What we're told is that encouraging diaspora remittances, forex, in the banks would help the economy, because we have a forex flow problem. And then you now come up with this other policy, if that is what it is, that you cannot save more than $5,000. Okay, the remaining dollars, where would they be kept? You say you want to discourage appetite for the greenback, for the Benjamins, but you also have in place a policy that encourages that same attitude. So I see a contradiction between this, if indeed it is a policy, and the cash for dollar policy. Naira for dollar policy, right?
Yeah. Yes,
to encourage, remittances to IMOs. So there's that contradiction. I don't know if you will still have enough time to help clarify that.
Yeah, so that's, again, it's electronic, so cash. If it's electronic, it can be above 5,000. And in the Naira for Dollar scheme, that one is through official channels that they can track. So there's a cashless aspect to this, there's also a tracking aspect to this. And you know how the CBN feels about the parallel market, so.
Well,
yeah.
I got the point about that, but there's something about lack of clarity in terms of how we manage domestically the foreign exchange regime, which was one major point that came out of the Augusto Consulting Limited report.
Right.
And I hope that, attention will be paid to some of those issues raised in the Augusto report. About one, how we manage the domestic foreign exchange regime. And there are recommendations in that regard from the Bretton Woods institutions.
Yes.
Now, emigration. That Augusto report also talked about emigration. Are we going to say we encourage emigration so that we can have diaspora remittances more? Now, that Augusto report also talked about, the local environment here, in terms of investment. So these are issues that the CBN and the other relevant agencies may well take on board. Augusto and Co, they're saying, 22 billion, up from whatever we had in 2019 and 2020. Well, that is fine, because we depend also on foreign remittances, diaspora remittances as a major source. And my question with regard to that, when I read about these diaspora remittances, do we even do enough for these same Nigerians in diaspora at the level of citizen diplomacy? We love the remittances, but are they factored into diplomacy? These are the same people who cannot get a visa. These are the same people who cannot renew their passports. These are the same people who are perpetually carrying placards.
Right.
Finally, you brought up the issue of the holiday. Yes, your concern is well shared by many Nigerians. They say, for example, why put the holiday Wednesday, Thursday? When the Eid al-Fitr is on Thursday, why not Thursday and Friday? It doesn't make sense. Maybe somebody high up there needs to be at home on Wednesday and just projected that onto the national space.
Well, if there's any doubt about this policy of the $5,000 limit, go to the bank on Friday with $5,001. They will let you know that you cannot deposit that $1. Right. It is a fact at this moment. But so much for financial inclusion. That's my thing. What happened to our financial inclusion drive? Telling people to keep their money out of the banks, whatever currency it is, sort of contradicts that. But the Augusto report made an interesting point about how we do use those diaspora remittances, and it's usually for consumption. 70% it said, and 30% for investment.
Right.
I'm hoping that it can be harnessed properly and used mostly for investment. And to your point, Dr. Abati, about the diaspora, you'll recall recently they couldn't even have a petition read in the House of Reps. Right. So the way we treat them, we take their money and we treat them quite shabbily. Right. So I take your point there, Dr. Abati.
Well said, well said.
All right, thank you so much, Ruth, for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you. We'll move on to Business Update with Michael Wilson, Jones from London. Michael, great to have you. Hi,
Good
Michael.
morning. Yeah,
Good morning,
so worries about inflation, really, and which way things are going. It could turn to interest rate rises sooner rather than later, but we still do not know this. My point about it is, and I think this is shared by a lot of commentators, is that a year ago, global economies were in a state of lockdown. Oil price was plunging. If you remember, on April the 20th, it went minus a long, long way. So, and for its part, the Federal Reserve has pointed out recently that spikes in inflation are transitory, and it will try to look through them. However, if you look at the FTSE, for example, it's still 8% ahead of where it was in the year. So as far as Asia's concerned, then it caught some of that mostly down direction from Wall Street. Mainland Chinese markets subdued in trade this morning. The Nikkei dropped about 0.75%. China PPI came up. Factory gate prices, rise in base metal commodity prices, not helping that sort of transitory inflation cause, basically. But we'll see about that. Nissan down 11, over nearly 12% this morning. There's a company in flux at the moment. Announced on Tuesday its annual operating losses widened to 150 billion yen. That's $1.38 billion. So lots of work to do there. Let's turn our attention to the United States then. And Dow futures have fallen since I got up this morning, around about 200 points after yesterday's worst day since February. The Dow down 473 points at close of play yesterday. What will happen there? Also, fuel supplies are tightening in the United States, obviously because of that pipeline attack. And Joe Biden is altering some of the fuel transport rules. He did say that 18 states, I think, could transport fuel by lorry. Now it's by ship as well to try to get over that. But the key figure is lunchtime today in the United States. Inflation's US CPI expected to grow 0.2% the previous month. That's up 3.6 over the year. That will be the largest since 2011. So if anything over that, and the inflation story will start to get wings as well. Economists have said, and I sort of agree with this, the jump in inflation looks much bigger than it would be because of the fact that we were so far down as far as the lockdown was concerned. And certainly we've had the St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard saying overnight that the economy has made good progress in the United States, but it's now not the time to stop QE. That will continue. So to the UK then, the markets here have echoed the inflation concerns. FTSE biggest faller 100 yesterday. Those concerns obviously heightened by those China factory gate prices, which I was telling you about. UK GDP, though, here's an interesting one for you. The economy shrank in the first quarter by 1.5%. That's the first indication of the damage done by the big lockdown in January. Not nearly as bad as people thought it would be. Thinking about -4%, -3%. Bank of England certainly saw it be down about 2.9%. So not too bad. And the Bank of England are saying this morning that if the Chancellor, the Finance Minister here, gets something like a £20 billion recovery windfall, then there won't be any need for tax increases. I think we all share that massively. Greensill, UK watchdog to probe criminally collapse of this the UK financial watchdog has started this. It's a Liberty Steel backer, Greensill Capital. We've talked about this before. We know that the steel thing's in trouble, as is former Prime Minister David Cameron, facing still very, very detailed questions about lobbying there. UK Queen's speech yesterday. The Queen, first occasion since the death of her husband, actually spoke. Normal Queen's speech. What happens is it gives an idea of what the administration is going to do with its parliamentary time. And there's been a bit of concern that there wasn't a great deal about workers' rights in this. The TUC, Trade Union Congress, had said they'd been promised that there would be something about that. There wasn't. UK Morrison's, the supermarket, they're hailing the renaissance of the supermarket. Pandemic has led to the renaissance of it. Fourth largest supermarket group, sales up 2.7%. Forecourts getting busier. Food to go, people shopping, people wanting to cook at home. That's what's helped Morrison's through it. The UK has also announced plans for a new law that would fine companies which carry online abuse. It's called the Online Safety Bill. Could fine them up to $25 million if proved against them. As far as commodities are concerned, oil markets remain very much on the sidelines. Gold, I get there, big ranges, small changes really. That's the thing there. Trading in a $25 range, doesn't know which way to go, but remains impressively resilient. I'm still terribly mystified by this inflation story. If you can help me on it, I'd be very grateful. I'm doing what the commentators say. I'm just taking a general view, really, but it's very, very difficult at the moment to understand what's going on. Back to you.
All right, many insights coming across. I asked a question yesterday about the price of electric cars becoming way cheaper than fossil fuel cars in 2027, and some are even saying it's going to be quicker than that, maybe 2024. So that's a couple of years away. What will that do to the oil industry? I'm really, really intrigued out of the numbers coming out of UK. You know, the economy didn't do that well. Why is it that things, despite the fact that the UK and America both deployed resources to the economy, the UK had a furlough scheme, America had, palliative scheme, a lot more money for a lot of people. Why is it that America is doing quickly, the economy is looking up better than the UK economy and Europe in general? What is happening? And despite the fact that UK has done a lot of work as regards vaccination.
The United States is not doing better than the UK. They are both coming out of the pandemic lockdown very much more quickly. Both economies are than people actually thought they were. And an indication of that is the fact that in the United States they're actually going to limit furlough now to a date. So workers are thinking to themselves, am I going to get furlough or do I need to go back to work? That's happened overnight. So, and here, as I was saying to you, if there is this recovery windfall of £20 billion, then it means there won't be tax increases. So, and also that those Q1 growth figures I gave you, they're in negative territory, but not nearly as bad as people expected. I have no explanation for that. It looks like there's been a lot of resilience we didn't really know about. So no, as far as both those economies are concerned, both doing much better than expected. The problem is, it's no point though, as I've said all along, in being an economy which is doing well in isolation. As I've said before, no man is an island, no economy is an island either. And when we're not seeing that sort of progress in the EU, certainly German manufacturers holding up, but vaccine progress is not being transmitted particularly fast in the EU. That's the worry. And until that happens, they will still languish. And we haven't even come to the political difficulties or indeed the elections, which are coming up next year. As far as electric cars are concerned, well, yeah, fine. My friend who bought a Tesla said the beauty about a Tesla is it was actually built as an electric car. Lots of cars have not been built as electric cars, but they are converting to be electric cars. I'd still wait for those prices to come down. So that's number one. Don't see that happening yet, except in China, where they're targeting a very, very small one. But the range is a problem. You've got to have more than 150 miles range in a car. And secondly, where's all the infrastructure? Where are the plug-in points? Who wants to wait half an hour to recharge their car after they've done 150 miles? We're still in the foothills of all this. So I think the oil, quite honestly, is quite a long way to go.
Quickly, on inflation, the chairman of the Federal Reserve is saying that the uptick in inflation rate is temporary and that it is transitory and that it is based on, base points from last year. And I guess what he's saying by that is that there will be no need for any change of policy, either with regard to interest rates or quantitative easing. Do you agree with him that this is temporary and transitory? And then on the Queen's speech,
I to you, I don't know is the answer to that question. I really do not know. And I've been talking to people all morning about this, and there is a lot of confusion about what is actually going on. Yes, the Fed have said they will look through these temporary spikes, and it's a good argument to say that as things have been so low, then if we're seeing them rising again, then of course we're going to get these big peaks and troughs. The question is it transitory? I really do not know the answer to that question. And I don't think anybody does. We're just going to have to see what happens. But the Fed has said, like most central banks, certainly like the Bank of England, for example, saying we will look through this because it may just be temporary. We really don't know. If it's any help to you, the majority of people I've spoken to since I got up this morning have been saying they do not see any interest rate rises either in the United States or in the United Kingdom until the end of the year, and then maybe well into 2022. So all I can do is canvass opinion about this. It's very, very difficult to say.
Okay, I wanted to raise another issue about the Queen's speech, but maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Yes,
okay. I'll postpone my issue till tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
All right. We'll go for a quick update on COVID-19 pandemic. This Homaro is here with us, and thank you so much, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Tunde, and good morning, Rufai. You said the show this morning talking about the meeting of the 17 governors of the South in Delta State focusing on security. But it is noteworthy that the 17 Southern governors also had a conversation about the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are expressing concern on the economic implications should there be another national lockdown, which would be the second one. So they are now proposing a greater collaboration and coordination between the federal and state governments in evolving strategies to deal with the pandemic. We'll definitely keep an eye on that to see how they respond to the pandemic going forward. Very quickly to the statistics we have for you today. Almost 400,000 cases of COVID-19 infections were recorded yesterday globally, and 9,000 deaths. Now, India alone posted almost half of the deaths. A record rise of 4,205 deaths were recorded in India in the last 24 hours, pushing its total fatalities past the 250,000 mark in the country, while daily infections went by 348,421. COVID desperation and despair is definitely engulfing India. There were more reports on Wednesday of bodies being washed up on the Ganges River. They are suspected to be, this is as a result of shortage of cremation sites in the country. Meanwhile, the WHO says the Indian variant has now been found in 44 countries. To Nigeria now, where 47 new infections were also recorded in 7 states. Adamawa State reported 19 cases, which was the most infections for the day in the last 24 hours this month. Vaccination against COVID-19 continues in Nigeria. According to the NPHCDA latest data, an additional 76,063 people received their first jabs of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. And still in Nigeria, the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 has been giving clarifications on the COVID-19 measures announced earlier in the week on Monday. Well, Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed was on Arise News, and he had this to say about the COVID-19 protocols.
There is no lockdown. We are not in a lockdown state. What we have issued out is actually a reissue of the guideline that is already in existence. This guideline has come into place since March 2021, and we're only reissuing it and just reinstating that those measures will continue to be in place. So there is no curfew, there is no lockdown. What we have is just a 4-hour curfew between 12 midnight and 4 a.m.
There you have it. To be honest, I've heard some ridiculous theories about this curfew, which has always been in place. And I think this calls to question the issue of enforcement. Perhaps the lack of enforcement made a lot of Nigerians forget that the curfew had always been in place all along, actually since 2020. And then beginning May 17, which is 5 days from now, travelers within the ECOWAS bloc will start to pay a fixed and reduced amount for their PCR or otherwise COVID test of $50. This was announced by Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation of Nigeria. He said the authority of ECOWAS heads of state and government had fixed the cost of COVID-19 testing at $50 at all points of entry into member states as part of measures to ease travel and trade among ECOWAS members. Now, in the U.S., the demand for vaccine has declined significantly in recent weeks, but President Joe Biden hopes to motivate people to get vaccinated by offering them, guess what, free rides to and from their vaccination sites. Now, he made this known during a virtual meeting with a bipartisan group of governors. President Biden announced the measures to include partnership with ride-sharing services Uber and Lyft, as well as opening vaccination sites at community colleges, among others. The current 7-day vaccination rate average, according to the CDC in America, is 1.9 doses daily. That's down from 3.2 million in mid-April. That's the update, guys.
Well, Tundo, you want to go first?
Yes, I'm a bit baffled by the EU taking AstraZeneca to court again. I'd like your take on that, Adeswa. Okay. What is the point? There's already a pending lawsuit. Are they trying to throw lawsuits at the problem when the real issue was, unfortunately, that they got off the blocks just too late?
So there was an agreement signed between the EU and AstraZeneca way back in August 2020 for the Anglo-Swedish firm to supply them 300 million doses, but they've only been able to supply 50 million doses so far. So I guess this is a way of putting pressure on them. But AstraZeneca, on the other hand, is saying, we did not commit to say we're going to supply you all of this. We said we'll do to the best of our ability, and we've had problems with some of our production sites. They say, in fact, in the contract, they only mention the Belgium production site, but EU is saying that's not correct. We know that you have other production sites which you can meet up production and give us our supply. It's just putting pressure on them.
Well, quickly, starting with the EU, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, had before now even made it clear that they were not going to order anything from AstraZeneca again. And that's why you know, in the EU, the preference now is for the mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna. Secondly, you'll recall that this was the subject of a diplomatic face-off, if we can use that phrase, between the European Union and the United Kingdom. And what's the big issue? Just as you have said it, AstraZeneca had not been able to meet its contractual obligations, citing production hiccups. They were supposed to deliver about 300 million doses. Out of that, they've been able to do just 1/3. And they are promising that by the end of June, they will be able to do just 100 million out of 300 million. But the EU is angry. You know, you recall that in one European country, there was even an attempt to stop any export of any vaccines from anywhere in Europe. And at a point, you know, shipment to Australia was also blocked from Italy. But now, yes, Tundu is right. This is a second lawsuit on the same subject. But AstraZeneca is saying, well, they are prepared to fight till the end. The question to ask is that original question that was raised by Germany, France, and Hungary. 3 countries that did not originally support the lawsuit. And the question that those 3 countries raised at that time is whether this lawsuit, which can go on and on and on, whether it will help to facilitate, accelerate deliveries. That may not happen. But, you know, all of this is about politics, it's about contracts. As for the United States, yes, you will recall that the other day you brought up the case of Serbia. Serbia, you know, the first country, we're told, to adopt a cash for jab initiative. About $30, right? About 3,000 dinars in their local currency. And before now, we've also had some states. In Detroit, for example, in that city, people who give free rides to vaccination centers will get $50. In Washington and New York City, if you go and take a jab, you may get free beer, you may get yogurt, you may get donut, and you may get a special roll of marijuana to top it up. You know, so what you see is that, you know, in many parts of the world, efforts are being made to motivate people. And now we see in the United States at a national level, the president of the United States saying he wants to meet a target of 70% of adults being vaccinated by July 4. When he is hoping that, you know, there will be an opportunity to ease restrictions nationwide. And, you know, this partnership with Uber and Lyft is supposed to go in that direction. This is not the first time Uber is providing this support. You'll recall in 2020, they offered 10 million free rides. But hopefully, let's hope that this will again help accelerate the appetite for the vaccines in the US, which has gone down. There's been a slowing down. And this is an attempt to accelerate it and get more people to go to the vaccination centers, not just at the old designated centers, but also now at community centers. Okay, I ask the question, is there a lesson that we can learn from this? Because if you promise Nigerians now that you will begin to serve amala at vaccination centers, oh, there will be a rush. Not just amala, with pomo and bokoto. You know, there will be an incentive.
You're making me hungry.
Maybe that's something for us to think about.
I mean, maybe they should start that. You know, I wouldn't mind a very good amalang begiri, Dr. Batibadi, and they would do.
That's your preference.
That's my preference. I mean, I have a very strong penchant for that. But for me, what is coming out of India is sad. It's gotten to a point where bodies are floating on the Ganges. Because people can't cremate. And it is so sad that Indians, and that's why you see education is everything. You know, this was you that kept on talking about infodemics. I don't know who told the Indians that cow dung cures COVID. I saw pictures of them rubbing cow dung on their body to cure COVID. And what the doctors are saying now is that the cow dung they are rubbing on their body is even killing them because it leads to something called the black fungus. That when you check their samples, they've got black fungus in there. So I don't know who told them all of a sudden. And that's why you see religion and politics plays a very integral part in every nation. When you mix it with religion, when you mix it with the politics of every nation, the nation is as good as a damned nation, or a doomed nation, I should say. And that's why I think Neil Ferguson wrote a book recently. He called it Doomed, the catastrophe of politics. And it's the catastrophe of politics that you are seeing in India. Despite the surge in COVID crisis in India, do you know that politicians are still fighting each other in India? There was a big outbreak Two different political camps going head and head, fighting each other in India. That's what the catastrophe of politics, the catastrophe of religion. And most importantly, when you have no leadership prevailing. And I hope we are learning lessons. Now we see that we have seen one strain of the Indian strain, but it's not as virulent as the Indian strain in Nigeria. What is leadership doing? All of these measures they put in place, how are they enforcing? Secondly, we are talking about vaccination. Have they even bought the vaccines needed? Less than 1% of the population has taken the first jab. They say, okay, those ones will take the second jab. Is that enough to build herd immunity?
Definitely.
What is the vaccination plan till the end of the year? We've just given 1-point-something million people vaccine in a country of 200 million, over 200 million. Does that mean that vaccination is over? Are we going to keep depending on God to protect the rest of us? What are we even doing? What are we thinking in this country? We keep saying, okay, we are talking to Afrexim Bank, we'll put some for Johnson & Johnson. What other alternatives? We still need to vaccinate a sizable number of people in this country. America, that has a population of 341 million, according to the last statistics they had, census they had, has vaccinated well over 100 million people. By now, if Nigeria is serious, we should have vaccinated well over 50 to 70 million people. But we are playing. I just pray, because now we are calling on God to protect us. But heaven helps those who help themselves. Are we helping ourselves at all? These are the issues on ground. I want you to help me, put a lot of light on this vaccination thing, because I don't see any plan. I don't see any plan. And maybe I'm just being agitated for nothing.
Where there is a plan, the state governors are asking for collaboration and cooperation with the federal government of Nigeria.
Yes.
At the Southern Governors Forum that was held yesterday in Asaba. I think the only caveat that we should put there, that we hope that these state governors from the South, when they ask for collaboration, they are not looking in the direction of the federal government giving them money.
Yes.
Now, as subnationals, they also have a responsibility in terms of providing for the public health of the people. It's not under the exclusive list. It's on the concurrent list. And if you do an audit, you do an assessment, many of these state governors do not even think it's a priority. They think it's an opportunity to collect, largesse from the federal government. I hope that is not what they are thinking about. We saw President Biden yesterday holding meetings with governors along bipartisan lines, and we've seen the outcome of that. We would like to see something like that also here in Nigeria. They are talking about the second phase kicking in very soon. Okay, how many states have made their own efforts to even get additional vaccines? We had a promise in that regard from Lagos State, but nothing has come out of it. Now, still on the issue of what the government wants to do and the announcement by Boss Mustafa with regard to the decision of the authority of ECOWAS heads of states and governments. Well, at that forum yesterday, there was a point that was made by Osage Ehanire, that is the Minister of Health.
Yes.
He was appealing to Nigerians that, okay, we're going tomorrow into a festive mood. Tomorrow is Eid al-Fitr, Barakah de Salah, and all of that. And he cautioned that people should be careful. People should not think because it is a festive occasion, they can throw away all the non-pharmaceutical precautions. We should remember the example of India. They had the Kumbh Mela, right? That festival. They had the election rallies and all of that. And look at where India is today. And there is this warning that the Indian variant has entered Nigeria, has been noticed in Nigeria. The Indian variant B1617, which the WHO itself has described as a variant of concern.
Yes.
Because it mutates on its own. It keeps mutating.
And it's more transmissible.
So Nigerians should be careful. We should celebrate tomorrow with caution. Barakah de Salah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Adeso.